Hey, Creep Cult, welcome to your weekly Patreon bonus episode.
Jennifer's Body.
Yes, we're continuing with our alphabet roulette, and for Jay, we landed on Jennifer's Body. And then got
I'm not saying I wouldn't land on Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, and then get your insides ripped out.
Hey, death by Snoop.
Do you think, John, though, that you could take on Machine Gun Kelly? Do you think you could take on Machine Gun Kelly?
Haven't they
What's the
not been
reference
together
here?
for a really long time?
Him and Megan Fox?
They were together for a while, and I don't think they're together anymore.
Last I was keeping tabs on Megan Fox, I saw she was with Machine Gun Kelly. Maybe in the past. I don't know. But
Now it's just Machine Gun.
oh, shit. Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know, we have, I think, briefly talked about this movie just in the context of John and I both really dig it. Tone has said in the past that he does not like this movie very much. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to force us all to rewatch it to see if our opinions stayed the same. Because that's the fun of this show, you know, is...
revisiting shit sometimes.
Yeah, bringing it up from the grave, having it possessed by a succubus spirit, and then letting it chomp our fucking dicks off.
Wow.
That's how I like to see a movie.
So
yeah.
This one was written by Diablo Cody and directed by Karen Kusama.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Diablo Cody did that movie about Juno.
The documentary about Alaska. Stars Megan Fox, Amanda Seyfried, Adam Brody,
Hell yeah.
Johnny Simmons, J.K. Simmons, briefly Chris Pratt, and Kyle Gallner.
Yeah, it dawned on me
enough.
when we were seeing...
and Amy Sedaris.
when we were seeing a certain Marvel Studios picture last night, I was like, oh shit, I watched 2 Chris Pratt movies today.
So we might be talking about that later today.
Spoilers. But yeah, if you don't know, the basic premise of this movie is that Amanda Seyfried's character is needy.
And that's just her name, her character.
The whole movie, I was like, okay, because I didn't look it up, and I was thinking, what is that a nickname for? Like, what could that possibly be a nickname for? Anita. But her character has a bordering on creepy obsession level friendship with the very gorgeous, popular Jennifer, played by Megan Fox. They do the classic move in this movie of taking a drop-dead gorgeous actor and trying to ugly them up. Basically does it by putting a big, hat on them.
It's like Never Been Kissed style.
Yeah, if their hair's kind of, wavy and a little bit messy, and
they wear glasses,
sweaters, and I'm like, Amanda Seyfried is hot as hell, but not quite as hot as Jennifer in this movie.
Good for her for being able to turn her career around after doing like the dumb role in Mean Girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she could have just played that character and probably made a career out of that.
She also has a beautiful singing voice.
Oh, really?
I think she's a very rare. It's like type of soprano voice, so she can get like super super high.
So she talks about gabagool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the movie, she has this, like I said, bordering on creepy friendship with Jennifer. She's kind of obsessed with her. They go to a little show at a bar, this band called Low Shoulder, lead singer Adam Brody.
Mm-hmm.
So salty.
Yeah. They are... an indie band, an indie rock band, I guess, who they're trying to make it big. They haven't had much success, so they plan to sacrifice a virgin to Satan. They end up choosing Megan Fox's character, Jennifer. They sacrifice her, and she ends up coming back possessed by some sort of succubus demon.
Because she ain't no virgin.
Not even a backdoor virgin.
Way to go, Chris Pratt.
Yeah, way to go.
Character.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah.
And she comes back to feast on the boys from the small town of Devil's Kettle. And yeah, that's basically it. And Amanda Seyfried has to go through all the classic moves of looking up what she might be in the school library and getting an oddly specific, accurate breakdown of exactly what's going on with Jennifer. And they have to find a way to stop her before she noms everybody.
Yep.
Ish. So I really dig this movie for a lot of reasons. And I know when it originally came out and when I first saw it, I don't think I was a big fan of it either. I think it was one of those movies that I think just gelled with me more the older that I got, because the more I was inundated in the horror genre and kind of saw this more as a
kind
fun,
of a love letter.
Yeah, it's a love letter and also a little, inversion of a lot of the typical tropes of horror. And that's what Diablo Cody said was her intention with this. And she said both her and, is it Kusama, the director? Is that the last name? Yeah, Kusama. They both said that they are very vocal feminists and wanted to make a movie that was, taking the typically, female virgin trope, being the survivor, and basically have the character be killed but then come back and get revenge on all of these characters and get all of this power and flip it that way, and have the vulnerable characters in it be the men as opposed to the women. So all of the guys are kind of like ineffectual fucking idiots in this, and they all get nommed for it. I like that. I think the dialogue is good. Diablo Cody, I think her dialogue was very of its time. I haven't seen her newer stuff. I think Tully, she did that movie with...
She did, yeah.
Tully was fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't speak for like her newer projects, but when you go back and watch Juno, it feels extremely twee and very like quirky to the point of being annoying in parts. I do think that overall the movie is very good, aside from the potential like pro-life versus pro-choice weirdness that movie is kind of trying to grapple with. But I was concerned on the rewatch here that I would be annoyed by the dialogue, and sometimes it does go overboard.
What was the one? She's like, "It's so freak-tarded," and I was like, "What are you even saying?"
They also they use the R slur a little bit. They use the F slur a little bit. I mean, and it is meant to be characters who are like not meant to be likable.
Well, to me, it's Mean Girls with demons eating people like that. And in Mean Girls, all of the dialogue is stupid as fuck, but it's memorable because it's like this over the top kind of heightened high school, because people talk like fucking idiots in high school. I talked like that, and that was kind of my way of being less annoyed by it, as opposed to something like with Joss Whedon. It reminded me a lot of his dialogue, because I think his dialogue works really well when it's characters who are like in Buffy, where they're in high school, they're in that age where they should all be talking like, ridiculous and making words up and all this stuff. And then when he does it for every character in the Avengers, you start to feel like, oh, okay, do you just have one way you're able to write? And I think Diablo Cody kind of has a similar thing going on, where it's like all of your characters kind of talk exactly the same, and it's all just these crazy made up words and all this stuff. But it didn't bother me as much as I thought that it would on the rewatch. I also think that this movie is gorgeously shot. I think it does shy a little bit more away from the gore and the violence than I would like it to. Yeah. I do think I do wish it went further. There were a couple scenes where I felt like it was really obvious. You could tell that it cut away to...
You actually don't see any of the kills outside of like people getting burned at the barn. The only person you see die is Megan Fox.
When you just come back to the bodies after,
yeah,
and they're all torn apart.
And then the most kills that you get, the most blood in the movie, comes during the credits. I was like, that's actually really frustrating for me, because it's like, well, why would I want to see, like, I don't care about that anymore. Like, I'm cool. That's cool that she got revenge, but it's not even really technically part of the movie. Like, we actually don't see anybody die.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want. I want to see people.
Well, and my thought going in was, I was like, this is pretty much an Evil Dead movie if you took all of the gore out of an Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the ridiculousness and the humor and some of the gags and stuff, and then all, the whole idea of this person gets possessed and kind of vacillates between, and you never really know whether she is still, I almost said Megan, whether she is still Jennifer or whether the whole thing is the demon pretending to be Jennifer, and how she switches into her monster mode and all that. I was like, oh, this would, like, you could have just, if the guys took out the Necronomicon instead of their book of like, occult studies or whatever, and used that, it'd basically be an Evil Dead movie, just if you took all the gore out, which is weird too, because
poster in one of the shots.
Yeah, and I think that's one that clicked with me, and I was like, oh shit, obviously, like that was a huge inspiration.
And like her vomiting like black bile or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's really cool that it's obviously a very it's homaging that things
Carrie.
like Carrie, Lost Boys, Heathers,
probably Ginger Snaps to some extent, I would think.
So that's actually there's a whole thing in here that kind of blew my mind, and I
where?
in my phone.
Oh.
In my notes about ginger snaps, because when you read the article for Jennifer's Body, the only suggested article at the bottom is ginger snaps. It literally just links it because the movies are that similar.
Yeah.
And I had this thing here where it says that it's always compared to ginger snaps in conversation. Both films have female characters that are close at first but then become enemies. One of the characters is attacked at night, survives, and becomes evil. The evil character becomes rude to their companion. In both films, the evil character starts killing boys from the school and eating them. The good character finds a way to kill the evil one, searching in the school's library. The love interest of the good character is bitten and killed by the evil character. Both films end around a school party, as well as ending with the good character stabbing the evil one in the heart in their own home. At the end of both films, the good character is bitten and becomes evil as well. Both films have also been critically evaluated as being metaphorical representations of female puberty and adolescence, or as we like to call them, period pieces.
Yep.
Yeah, they do have a lot of period jokes in this movie.
I think where a lot of people get lost with Jennifer's Body, where I think a lot of people really succeed in watching Ginger Snaps and being really excited about it, is around the dialogue. The dialogue is dated. I think that it's still funny, and I think that it still holds up to a degree, but it is of its time, where I feel like Ginger Snaps plays the dialogue a little more straight. It doesn't quite dig in to the 2000s comedy-isms, like the typical Diablo Cody, Juno style of writing, with the, comparing it to things like Juno, like the diddle that can't be undid or whatever, and things like that. It doesn't have its own language. It uses universal language in Ginger Snaps, so it's not as difficult to stay attached to the storyline there. Whereas I think that could potentially turn people off at Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, something that was different for me this time around is I always forget. To me, the Amanda Seyfried's character is not supposed to be likable. She's not supposed to be somebody that you're rooting for, and that might also be a problem for some people, is that there's not really a character who you like in the movie, because Jennifer's pretty much a piece of shit from the beginning, and then literally becomes a monster, and then Needy is just obsessed and needy and kind of creepy, and you can tell she reminds me a lot of Misty from Yellow Jackets, which makes sense because the director of this movie is the executive producer of Yellow Jackets and directed the first episode, which I did not know until I was reading about it today. So
new one is out today, huh?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be emotionally devastating. I saw people on Twitter saying
that's what we need after last night.
Yeah.
After we all jerk cried. Huh?
But very similar vibes. Some of the stuff in Yellow Jackets, I was like, oh, now that I see that connection, makes a ton of sense. But this director also did The Invitation, the good one, the one that we watched for this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think the directing in this movie is great. The way that it's lit is really, really cool. I love Adam Brody, and I think that all of the jokes with him and his band really work for me. I love that their song is, one, kind of foretelling everything that's going to happen in the movie, just in that song, and it gets played a million times throughout it, and it becomes this really corny earworm thing. And then also, it becomes their signature song and their hero song or whatever after this horrific fire that happens. And the chorus of the song is basically I'm still breathing, I'm still here, you're never coming back. And I'm that's hilariously fucked up that their song is basically just you're dead, but I'm still here. And I love the whole bit of them just being it's just so tough in the indie scene these days. So we just buddied up to Satan, and they're just fumbling over this entire ritual. But then you get that really creepy, Clockwork Orange style scene where he's just I just thought of something. And they start singing the 8, 6, 7, 5, 3 while they're stabbing her. It's brutal. And also I think this is probably Megan Fox's best performance, because generally I think most people would agree she's not the highest caliber actor. But I think partially because she kind of just gets to play herself in this movie, it works really well. But also in that scene when she's getting stabbed, I totally bought when she's screaming beforehand and freaking the fuck out. I was she's putting in a really good performance here, and I think she's actually trying and putting it on the line. So that actually really impressed me. And she also said that this is her favorite movie that she's ever done, and I was I can see why, because you were good in it. And she also said it was just a way better experience than working on like Transformers movies because
I
there's
wonder
so much
why.
less going on in terms of distractions. And
I mean, I wonder why you would have a better time not on a set that has Michael Bay on it.
yeah, and also just doing something where you're actually standing in front of other people on a set. And because most of the stuff in this movie, outside of like the couple bits of CG of her face extending and breaking open, is all practical stuff. It's all people on sets and rooms. The bar fire in the beginning does end up being the most fucked up part of the movie, and I think it is genuinely pretty horrifying, especially if you're somebody who is afraid of that kind of situation happening. And it's totally plausible and a real thing that could and has happened with bands. I was kind of confused at that part. So it seems to me that Adam Brody like notices that the fire is happening because it keeps cutting to him like he sees it, but he doesn't say anything. Did they plan for the fire to happen, and that's supposed to be like the launching point of their?
It seemed like it because
then they become heroes after that, and
he's just like, "Hey, what's up? Like we were looking for you guys." So they obviously got out easily.
So their plan was to come to this small podunk town, get this little fire started, and burn down this place. And have an exit strategy, then go commit this ritual, and that whole thing would like help launch them into stardom to become like the big band. They're called Low Shoulder, which actually isn't a bad band name. It was pretty on the nose at the end when she gets picked up by the guy who's Lance Hendrickson, obviously not, or oddly enough, and they have the little sign that says Low Shoulder. But I thought. I think it's a really funny movie too. J.K. Simmons is fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
he's got his like weirdo perm wig on, and then it took me like 3 scenes of him to notice that he has a fucking hook hand. He's just like, "Hello, everybody. Trying to do a dorky teacher voice." But I feel like I've talked enough about this.
Yeah. Where are you at in this revisit?
Oh, I still don't like it.
For all the reasons that you already said, or are there more reasons?
I mean, I don't think the dialogue is good. I don't think it seemed to me. It seemed like it was just trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, oh, yeah, like because then Jennifer's like, oh, he's so salty, and then Amanda Seyfried's character pretends to know what she means, and then tries to use it, and I was like, okay, nobody cares. Like, you're not gonna make salty happen. And yeah, I mean, you don't see any of the kills. So I'm like, if she's gonna kill these dudes, like I want to see that. And so I thought that was kind of disappointing. Like I said, you get more kills and blood and gore in the credits than you do in basically the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of disappointing. But also looking at something like Ginger Snaps, I could not get that out of my mind the whole time. And I was just like, I would rather be watching Ginger Snaps during this.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, definitely there's stuff that is funny. And there's stuff that really works. Yeah, like you said, I think that the performances are fine. And some of the comedy hits and some of it doesn't. But that's the case with any comedy ever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. Like, I
don't think that's an unfair assessment. I view this more as a straight up comedy than I do, like I said, for Ginger Snaps. It's not a straight up comedy. It is a horror movie first, and I feel like this is definitely comedy movie first that was made by people who love horror and wanted to see something different.
And I like that. And I don't think I got that the first time that I watched it. Like we were talking about, where it's kind of a love letter.
Yeah.
Because, obviously the Ginger Snaps connection, the Evil Dead connection, Carrie, and I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff that's built into this. And so that was cool. But not enough to push the movie forward for me.
Yeah, having rewatched it, I think that totally makes sense. Like, if it doesn't do enough on the horror front to get you excited, and it also doesn't do enough on the comedy front to get you, I mean, that's always the case with horror comedies, is like they need to either nail them both or do one so well that the other feels, just like as an added bonus or icing on the cake.
And is this
PG-13? I'm pretty sure that it's R-rated, which kind of blows me away. And it could be for like sexual themes or something, and could honestly be because of the lesbian or the connotations and the girl on girl kiss.
See, so then that to me is even more disappointing.
Yeah,
that it's R-rated, so you could have pushed the gore. Watching it, I would have sworn it was PG-13 because of they didn't show anything.
Now I'm curious if they had the gore filmed
and then had to cut
it out to avoid an unrated.
From what I've read in a lot of
that's wild, because it's a pretty tame movie. I'm very surprised that it's R.
Yeah, I don't really. From what I read, it seems like a lot, too much. Honestly, too much effort from like Canby Effects, who have done shit pretty like all the way back to Evil Dead. Like, they came on to work on this, and there's a whole section about just all the work they put into figuring out the her jaw when it opens and the teeth and all the stages that they had her go through and all that stuff. And they even say in the interview I was reading, they're like, yeah, but you really only see that at the end of the movie, and for like a split second, a couple other times, like one other time in the woods when she attacks the first guy, you briefly see her mouth open, and then when she kills Kyle Gallner, it's like it's a shadow thing. Mm-hmm. They do it in shadow, and you don't even see him being torn apart. You just see his carcass afterward. So yeah, I was like, it really seems like you guys put in way more effort into this that we're not seeing in the movie, and I don't really understand why that is. But there was a lot of talk with Diablo Cody and the director and all this about like how far they wanted to go, and it seems to me like maybe the intention was to do a more like, and maybe it's because of when this came out, do like a more general audience pleasing, like, yeah, because if they had went too crazy with the gore, they might have felt like they would alienate the audience they were going for. Who knows? But yeah, I do think I would have. And I know there's an unrated version, and it does add a few minutes to the movie, but I don't really know if it's enough to make a huge difference. And like, to me, it seemed like in the scene when, like, yeah, in the scene when Megan Fox is swimming in the lake after she kills the first guy and she gets out, and they're playing like the, bow chicka, she's so hot music, but you're just seeing her from the neck up, and then it keeps cutting to her feet and back and forth. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that they must have had her topless in this scene, like in the original cut of the movie. And they just had to cut around and do a different, but then when I found out it was rated R, I was like, well, what were they, like, would it have gotten to NC-17 if she had been topless? I don't think so.
No, there's no way, because, I mean, it's not that old.
And if they're trying to appeal to a teen audience, then having it R-rated, which they wanted from the beginning. I read it in the interview. They were like, yeah, we knew it was going to be R-rated. And so I'm like, yeah, I feel like you guys could have pushed it further in places.
I feel like we've seen PG-13 movies that are more gruesome than this.
Yeah, maybe it was just a lack of confidence. I know when they made it, they very specifically wanted it to be a movie that would appeal both to men and women, but they wanted it to kind of be really appeal to women, and the studio did not understand that even remotely. They were like, women don't like horror, they're not going to come see this. So of course they marketed it like, look how hot Megan Fox is, and they were saying that's the audience we need to draw in, is guys who want to come see hot Megan Fox. I'm sure that was the majority of their audience, probably. But
I remember the trailers when this came out. I mean, it was very much Megan Fox forward, and it's like, it's not as much about Megan Fox's character for the most part. Like, I mean, it's really like the lens for the audience is Amanda Seyfried's Needy.
Well, and Megan Fox also spends most of the movie like done up to look emaciated and like sunken eyed and all this stuff. So like, if you're coming here to see hot Megan Fox, you can go watch the Transformers movies where she's literally always glistening and tanned, and
it's always just from her ass up.
Yeah. So yeah, there's just a lot of, the more we talk about it, the more this is falling apart for me, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's why these discussions are fun. But I mean, that doesn't mean that I dislike the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that they could have pushed it farther in some places. Overall, I still think it's a good time, but I would have liked it if my sister would stop fucking calling me during my podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
listen to the bonus episodes,
I think it's fine. Yeah, and I think that's as good as it's gonna get for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think it is a good time. I do agree, like that it's tough to find where they found an R rating out of this.
I think it's the lesbian scene, which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a huge hullabaloo around that specific scene, and I guess Amanda and Megan were, I'm calling them by their first names because I feel like I know them now that we've talked about them so much, but
say Mandy and Meg.
Yeah, they were really, they knew when they did the scene that it was pretty much, because it wasn't originally written in the script, and I guess they were going to do an even more explicit version, but they dialed it back but they knew when they were doing it that basically it was something the studio could use to promote the movie as like, look, 2 hot chicks kiss in this movie. That's why you should go see it. So they were uncomfortable with it at first, but they said actually once they started doing it, they realized that they had genuine sexual chemistry, and they were like, actually, it ended up being pretty fun. And then,
but it's a pretty tame scene, isn't it? Aren't they just like making out a little bit?
Yeah, they just like French kiss a little bit. I mean, it's
that does not seem like enough to give you rated R.
I agree, but I mean, it's also from a different era. I think there would be
2016 or 6,
2007, 2008 maybe.
Yeah, it's not that.
The last writers strike actually delayed it a little bit, but
I mean, we'll talk more about the current writers strike in the main episode.
Yeah, and but that reminds me, one of the weirdest things I read was part of the studio's initial plan to market this movie was they were going to have Megan Fox go to a bunch of porn websites and do like interviews on porn websites, and Diablo Cody and the director were like, can we fucking not?
Yeah, it's just like the opposite of
that's
this
like
message.
Yeah, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do with this movie. And so they said, yeah, like the marketing was really frustrating, and so they're really happy that the movie has since found a cult following in DVD and streaming, and it has kind of been reappraised as a feminist movie and having a lot of positive messages, when at the time it was just kind of seen as a, sexploitation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Stupid.
But yeah, we want to see what's happening next week for the K's.
Yeah, we got some K's, and we're going to spin that wheel of destiny. The dial of destiny, if you will.
Oh, shit. I made a lot of mistakes. I got to go bring the Nazis back.
Brady leaned over to me during the trailer yesterday. I was like, how is he so old and still so attractive? And she was like, it's like Helen Mirren. My dog.
We're going to be watching Knock at the Cabin.
Woo! What were the other picks?
The other picks were Kill List and Kingsman: The Secret Service.
What is Kill List?
It is a movie from 2011 directed by Ben Wheatley, I believe. It is, from what I recall, it's a movie that like goes a certain way. You think it's going a certain way for like the first 2 acts, and then it takes like an insane third act turn and it becomes like a really fucked up, brutal horror movie. So wow. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't seen Kill List. But I am excited to revisit Knock at the Cabin. I hear there's some knocking at that cabin, bro.
And you've not seen it?
No, I've not.
Okay, cool.
Well, it's a great Bautista performance. So stay tuned because we're talking about another Bautista performance.
Yeah, we can just tell you if you haven't already, check out our main episode where we are talking about Ghost in the Shell, and for Final Cut, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or Volume 3.
Volume 3.
Yeah, the final volume.
And if my sister happens to listen to this bonus episode, which she won't, but if she does, I apologize for getting angry about you calling. Just don't fucking call me. We won't have a problem.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Keep it creepy.